Hey there, folks. Welcome to my Retro Media Room. Today, I wanted to take a special look at 10 different PlayStation 1 games that I feel are underappreciated, overlooked, and kind of been pushed to the side, really, compared to whether it be entries from the same franchises or forgotten over time, or really just not given enough love. I wanted to go ahead and make this video and celebrate these games a little bit and give them some love. So to start with, we have Fighting Force, which is clearly inspired by Final Fight from Capcom. Now, this is when Eidos and Core they were putting out a slew of PlayStation 1 games, and I always felt that this was the best one aside from Tomb Raider. And it's a fun game. It's action-packed. It's got 4 different characters to pick from, and they all have their own animations and movesets, and they're quite good. It's a fun game, especially with a friend in co-op, and it's got lots of weapons to pick up and use. It's got interactive environments where you can pull weapons out of the environment, and a lot of destructible elements of the environment. And it's an innovative, fun arcade style romp that I would recommend to anybody who wants to go back and play something of this, a more 3D take on a beat 'em up, a retro style beat 'em up, right? So yeah, this game is quite fun. Now, not perfect. It can be frustrating at times. It can be hard. It can be very challenging. And one gripe I do have of the game is that it's not very organic feeling and figuring out the deeper combos of your characters, because I wasn't able to figure them out without going back and looking them up. So, because I know they're there, but I couldn't figure out how to do them without like reading up how to do them. And I don't really like that. You should be able to organically sit there and mash buttons and figure out how to get combos out of your characters, in my opinion. Not a huge gripe, but that's just, if I were approaching the design, I would make it where you could be a little bit more organic with it, not having to look stuff up. But anyway, so that's Fighting Force. Now, next game is an odd one, but a very fun one. 10 Pin Alley. So this is the one and only bowling game that I have. I've played this game since I was a kid. I used to play it with my siblings, and we all had our own characters that we used to play. I always played Dean. Growing up playing this, everybody always picked a different bowler, because that's what I like about this. There's really hardly any wrong way to approach how you bowl. You can bowl slow and accurate. You can bowl powerhouse. You can put spin on your ball. Like it's really neat how you can really just figure out what works for you to get those strikes. So I kind of like that open-ended feeling, kind of like real bowling, how you just kind of figure it out, what works for you and what works for that character, and you come up with your own style. So it's pretty deep in that regard, I think. So you really can approach it in your own way. Because me and my siblings, I had a character, my sister had a character, my older brother had a character, and we all bowled completely different from each other, approached them completely different. So that's pretty cool. The game it's quite goofy and cartoonish, and pretty funny, actually. The characters are funny. I love the tone of it. It doesn't take itself seriously, but it's still fun to play and has nice, realistic bowling physics. Yeah, the characters have animations for when you get multiple strikes in a row, or when you miss your strike, or when you go in the gutter. And it's a very fun, goofy game for the family. So I like it. Okay, the next one might be a little controversial, but Twisted Metal 3. So I've been playing Twisted Metal since the very beginning. I played the first one on a demo setup at a Target. I played Twisted Metal 2 on a demo after I got the PlayStation 1. It was a demo that came with my console. But then when Twisted Metal 3 was new, I was in California for my grandpa's funeral, and we were at my cousin's house spending the night there. And me and my 2 cousins, we played this game all night long. We literally played till the sun came up. It was so fun. So ever since then, I've always loved this game. I have a bias and fondness for it. Even though Twisted Metal Black, I would say is the best Twisted Metal game, both like objectively, and it's just a fantastic game. But I really do love Twisted Metal 3. Here's the thing about it. It is a flawed game. The way your car turns over, the way, the controls are pretty clunky. Going in reverse is annoying, or it can be. There's things that in 4, they clearly fixed from 3. You know, there's everything wrong in 3, or a lot of things wrong in 3. They corrected quite a bit in 4, but 4 is just boring. I like 4, but it's boring. 3 is fun. For all of its flaws, it's fun. The weapons are powerful. It's chaotic. It's hard hitting. The level design is good. The weapons. It's just fun. Like it's got a lot of character and spirit, and the soundtrack is killer. Love the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack in 4 as well, but this for me, this is my favorite soundtrack out of the bunch. So yeah, so Twisted Metal 3. Some would argue that, and of course, 99 Studios, they weren't a great studio. They didn't make amazing games, but they did a few gems, and I think this was one of them. So yeah, Twisted Metal 3. Okay, the next game we're going to take a look at, Legend of Legaia. So Legend of Legaia is a really underappreciated RPG of its time. Honestly, probably because it was just overshadowed by a lot of the other juggernauts that was on PlayStation 1, but I always really liked this game. It really took me by surprise back in the day. I always feel like I want to go revisit it. I'm actually going to here real soon. It's got solid graphics. It's got nice character design. It's got a solid story, good characters. It's all that stuff is solid and good stuff. But what really shines is the combat. Fantastic turn-based combat. It is some of my, kind of like Legend of Dragoon and Xenogears, how those have very memorable, some interactable combos and combat. That's how this game is. It has a very fun, interesting, engaging combat system, and the turn-based combat as a classic JRPG. So the PlayStation 1 really is for me, that was the renaissance of, the golden age and renaissance of RPGs was the PlayStation 1 era for me. PlayStation 1 is my favorite console of all time. Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time, and the RPGs on the PlayStation 1 were just phenomenal. I don't think, in my opinion, that's when RPGs peaked, was on PlayStation 1. Plenty of people disagree. That's fine. But for me, that's the golden age of RPGs. You could say, obviously, Sega Saturn had really good stuff too and other stuff, but yeah, PlayStation 1, amazing RPGs, and this game is certainly one of them that deserves to be loved and played. Next, we have Bushido Blade. So this is a fighting game that, out of all the fighting games out there that people talk about, this is not one you hear brought up very often. One reason why, understandably, it is a unique fighting game because matches can last anywhere from 5 seconds to 5 minutes. You never know. It all depends on how your sword lands, or how your hammer lands, or whatever weapon you're using, because it kind of adopted a somewhat a gritty, realistic approach to fighting games, where there's killing blows, you get cut and injured, and and another interesting aspect of this that is very ambitious for the time is that you don't realize that you're not limited to just a little arena you're fighting in. You can keep running in some of them. You can run, and you'll find more level and more level and more level that continues loading as you run away, and so these are connected stages that you can run around in. So potentially you can have these big, long, epic, crazy fights. It's kind of nuts, really. Most of the time you don't utilize that. You don't realize it because you just kind of fight and stick with where you are. But the fact that you can is really interesting. It's got clean graphics, good sound, interesting characters and dialogue and stories and detail. Like if you take out your opponent dishonorably, like if they're basically when they're essentially bowing to you, talking to you, and they're getting ready, and you just whack them and end it right then and there as they're mid-sentence, that's a dishonorable kill, and you can't get to the ending that way. It just cuts the game off with a message. So it punishes you for being dishonorable in a match. So that I like that little detail. It's very cool how it taps into honor and all that with the story mode. It's fun to play with friends, man. It is fun to go toe to toe with people and You never know who's going to land that hit. There's all these multiple characters, and you can take any weapon with any character and do any combination. And some characters are stronger with certain weapons than other weapons, and so on. You have to figure that out, and you have to figure out what works for you. So it is a very solid game, very cool. I've always really liked Bushido Blade. Now it's got a sequel. Oh, and there's a first person mode too. Very interesting. Not the best way to play it, but very interesting. Oh, and it has I saw in the back there, it has a link cable option. That's interesting. So you could probably play first person to first person. That's crazy. So yeah, Bushido Blade. Very good sequel as well. They're both excellent, but the first one's the one I played the most and the longest, so wanted to bring that up. Okay, next we have Soul Blade. So this was originally Soul Edge in the arcade from Namco, and there's a lot of and I'm going to mention a few details that there's a lot of DNA in this that's shared with the Tekken games, also from Namco. So Tekken 2 had a really cool intro, and this also has an amazing intro, even better. And then of course Tekken 3 had an intro. So really Namco was always on a mission to like one up themselves with epic intros in their fighting games. And this is my personal favorite out of those, but Tekken 3 also has a fantastic intro. And where this shares some DNA with Tekken 3 is that the same way they ported the arcade version of Tekken 3 to PlayStation, they added all that meat and potato single player content. So there was a lot of stuff to do in Tekken 3, and this is very similar. There's a lot of stuff to do in this game, a lot of stuff to unlock and play and do and everything. So it's not just fighting game and you're done. There's a lot of stuff in the game. It's very cool. Awesome characters, dynamic and well animated stages, the fantastic soundtrack, easy to pick up controls and combos and mechanics for whether it be you're a veteran fighter or a inexperienced fighter. It's got all the characters have their own individual stories and endings, and it's just a really awesome fighting game. It's one of my favorites. I've been playing it since it first came out. Pretty much since it first came out. Me and my siblings used to play the crap out of this back in the day, and it's just an epic game. It's a really epic game. It's one of my favorite fighting games from back in the day, and I really do love it. And I highly recommend it to anybody, especially if you're a Soul Calibur fan, which of course that was the evolution of Soul Blade was into Soul Calibur, which a lot of people don't. People have a tendency. I mean, I'm sure plenty of you do, but a lot of people don't know that this is the first one. Because Soul Calibur was not the first one. And then Soul Calibur was technically Soul Blade 2, and then so on, right? Which, I mean, Soul Calibur is an incredible game, but this is what started it. So, yeah, Soul Blade, absolutely fantastic. Next is a special one for me. We got Vandal Hearts. So, Vandal Hearts is a turn-based strategy RPG, much like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, which is where all the combat is on a grid environment, where your characters move around like chess pieces, and you can attack from left, right, front, and behind, which increases and decreases your likelihood of either landing your strike, or blocking. It's kind of a dice roll of how effective your hit lands. So it really is a game of chess. You have your turn for the board, and then the enemy AI has their turn, and you have to anticipate what the enemy's going to do during their turn, and you have to make your best moves within a limited range you can move and attack and so on. So it is a really pure, simple, to the point, effective, fun turn-based strategy RPG for newcomers and veterans alike. This was the first one I ever played, so this was one that I was able to easily get into, and it made me fall in love with the genre. There's RTSs, which are quite a bit different. Those are real-time strategies. I prefer turn-based strategy, and this is what got me on that, because I played this before Final Fantasy Tactics and so on. And not only that, but it has really cool characters. It has a cool story. The characters are just they have personality. They're just well-written characters, and they're interesting. Their character designs are cool. It's just It's just a really solid game. My cousin gave this to me back in the early 2000s, and it's just a really cool game. Here's the first Suikoden here advertisement. Also very good games. So yeah, Vandal Hearts. This started a whole arc for myself of being into turn-based strategy games. They're very satisfying and a lot of fun. if you want to use your brain in combat and really have a lot of strategy involved, but yet not be it's not too much though. It's easy. It's still fun to pick up and play. And we've got another fighting game, Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha. So, like the previous entries, when you got Soul Blade, what does everybody talk about? Soul Calibur. A lot of people don't even know Soul Blade exists. What do people talk about with turn-based strategies? They talk about Final Fantasy Tactics. A lot of people don't know that Vandal Hearts exists. That's why I'm doing this list. I want to talk about some of the games that either people don't even know exist, forgot about, or really just did not celebrate enough or appreciate enough. At least from my experience. So this game is a Street Fighter. This is one of my favorite Street Fighters of all time. It's my favorite 3D Street Fighter. Yes, all the way through the current ones. This is my favorite 3D Street Fighter. So this was developed by Arika Company, which they actually put out their own fighting game with the same characters from this, minus the Street Fighter Capcom characters. So they obviously used Capcom's properties with Street Fighter in this, but the original characters in this are technically owned by Arika, and those characters are great. Crackerjack is my personal favorite. He's my favorite in this game, and he's one of my favorites that's ever been in a Street Fighter game. He's just a lot of fun. He's very similar to Balrog. Of course, he fights a lot like Balrog, but even better because he's got a bat and he kicks and throws, and so he's really, really cool character. Now, not only does this game have solid, it was a 60 frames per second fighter. That's always a nice bonus. It has really clean graphics. Yeah, the characters are a little blocky, but that's part of its charm, and you really don't care about that as you get to playing it. It has a fantastic soundtrack. Absolutely awesome soundtrack. Really fun, great feeling fighting mechanics. Fun and goofy and trippy CGI endings for all the characters. There's a lot of game here. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of depth, and the way you're able to connect supers to each other in combos is really nice. And the way you're able to cancel out of moves into supers and grabs and so on, it's just really satisfying. It's a little broken, and that's in a good way. It makes it fun, and it's just really fantastic. I can't recommend this enough. The sequel is also good. The third one's okay on PS2. Sequel's very good, but I just love this one. I just love the first one. It is a great game. Not celebrated enough by Street Fighter fans, in my opinion. So it's a bit of an unsung title, right? Next is another Capcom game, Dino Crisis 2. Man, I absolutely cherish this game. As much as the first one is a cool game, and it is a true survival horror game in the first one, this is more of an action horror game from Capcom. So it's very much of the Resident Evil vein. It's very much Capcom. It has all, pre-rendered backgrounds, tank controls, limited items within reason. Anyway, it's got more of an abundance. I mean, you can buy ammo and stuff, but this is a more high octane, action packed. I mean, you as you kill dinosaurs, you build up combos, you earn points. It's a lot of fun. It has great replay value. It has awesome graphics and great sound, cool characters, good story. Very cool. I just love this game. It's so much fun. Now, if you're of the folks that hate tank controls, well, I'm sorry, but that's a you problem. I can't help people that don't, because I celebrate Resident Evil all the way back to the original. I love Resident Evil style games from Capcom, and or from other companies, which we'll see here at the last game. If you don't like tank controls, I can't do anything for you. I can't help you. That's a you problem. But if you don't mind tank controls or even like tank controls, well, let us celebrate the greatness that is Dino Crisis 2. Fantastic game. Has awesome music in portions of it. Like, most of the music is passable or fine throughout the game, but man, like the music in the end credits is awesome. It's an awesome track in the end credits. And it's just addictive. The replay value and everything, it's just an addictive, fun, cool game. I just can't. I love it. I love Dino Crisis 2. It's compared to Resident Evil and other Capcom, or even the first Dino Crisis, this one is just I just think it's underappreciated. Most people, I don't know very many people that have played this. So yeah, great game. And like I said, this list is really just about celebrating games that, and I'm sure you all, and then tell me in the comments what games that you all have and have played and loved that you feel like nobody else that you knew either played or talks about or even have disliked, that you just disagree with people left and right of always dissing the game that you love? Whatever the case, just what games are important to you that you feel like a lot of people disliked and have disregarded or don't even know exist, right? Tell me in the comments. Our last game here is another sequel, but from a different developer. Parasite Eve II. The first game is iconic, classic game. There's a big cult following for Parasite Eve. But I've always felt that the second one was underappreciated, doesn't get enough love, and doesn't get enough. And there are a lot of people that don't know that it's a lot like Resident Evil. So the reason for that is it has former Resident Evil devs involved, and it's got tank controls just like Resident Evil. It's got the way the guns work and the way pre-rendered backgrounds and all that. I mean, yeah, the first one did too, but the first one had really like it didn't. The first one had bigger pre-rendered environments, fixed camera angles in a way that was kind of its own thing. This one has a lot of Resident Evil feel to it, and that was intentional. That because they at SquareSoft they realized, wait a minute, Resident Evil is really popular right now. We should make a game more like Resident Evil. And so with this one, they went ahead and kind of went head first into that. And also a fun thing in this that there's some pretty big Tremors, the movie series references, Burt Gummer's gun wall and the Nevada desert setting and stuff like that in the middle of the game. So I really love that because I'm a big Tremors fan. But yeah, the combat is fantastic. It's an action RPG, so it's got really cool guns, detailed, great powers that you can upgrade throughout the game, diverse groups of enemies, really cool locales, beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds. It's just fun. A totally robust New Game Plus mode that gives it really great replay value. Cool music. It's just a great game. It's a really, really great game. It's not perfect. It can be frustrating at times, but once you nail the mechanics down, you know what you're doing. I mean, especially New Game Plus, you just flow. You just flow through the game, and it's fun. Really, really great. Underappreciated. I like Aya's design a little better in the first one, but it's certainly not bad here. She's a really good character. I just like this game a lot. I love it. And it's pretty creepy and intense in its own right. The first one has fantastic narrative and creepiness to it and atmosphere. This one has its own in its own right. So yeah, very, very, very good stuff. And those are 10 games feel that are underappreciated and underrated and not loved enough. So please let me know in the comments ones that you feel that are underappreciated, or if you've gotten into arguments with people or friends or family that they basically diss the game that you love, and you try to defend your game and make your stance for, no, this game is great and here's why, or you appreciate it ahead of their time, or whatever the case may be, right? Please like and subscribe. I'm still on the road to monetization, and I really want to get there so I can make better content and eventually give you all something to bite into as members if you ever want to become a member when that becomes available. And I'll see you next time.